Hey guys! Today we're diving into another truly horrifying case. If you want to support my channel, make sure to subscribe and stay active. It really helps me out. I'd be super grateful for that. Let's get started. On the evening of October 21st, 2018, 24-year-old Toya Jade Cordingley headed to Wangeri Beach, a remote stretch of shoreline located between Cairns and Port Douglas in Queensland, Australia. That day, she was looking after a dog named India, her boyfriend's pet. As the sun began to set, Toya arrived at the beach, parked her dark-colored Mitsubishi Lancer, grabbed India's leash, and set off for a walk along the sand. There were no direct witnesses to her walk, but her presence was later verified through phone tracking data and evidence found at the scene. By the next morning, Toya's car was still parked at the entrance to the beach, a clear sign something was wrong. India was found before anything else. The dog had been securely tied to a tree near the parking area. The leash was fastened in a way that suggested someone wanted the dog to be found. India didn't appear to be harmed, but the circumstances were concerning. Toya's belongings, including her wallet, were found inside the car. Her phone, however, was missing. When Toya didn't return home that night and didn't respond to calls or messages, her loved ones became increasingly worried. Her mother and friends spent the night trying to reach her but received no response. On the morning of October 22nd, they drove out to Wangeri Beach. It quickly became clear that Toya hadn't simply wandered off. The abandoned car, the tied-up dog, and the lack of contact all pointed to something serious. Wangeri Beach is a wild and isolated area. There are no streetlights, and the nearest homes are miles away. These conditions made nighttime searches difficult. By the morning of October 22nd, dozens of people had gathered at the beach. Toya's family, friends, and concerned members of the community organized a search effort. Teams formed spontaneously without waiting for official direction. Volunteers combed through the beach, dunes, nearby trails, and brush by hand. A strong sense of urgency and dread hung in the air. Everyone sensed this wasn't just a case of someone getting lost. Toya's father, Troy Cordingley, had been helping with the search since early that morning. At one point, he separated from the group and walked toward a section of the beach where sand met the scrubland. There, he noticed disturbed sand. As he got closer and brushed it away with his hands, he uncovered the body of a young woman. It was his daughter. Toya's body was lying on its side, partially buried beneath the sand. She was not clothed, and her personal belongings were missing. Visible signs of trauma included bruising, abrasions, and indications of being overpowered. No objects were found nearby that could explain what had taken place. It was clear the individual responsible had made efforts to hide what had happened. Law enforcement quickly secured the area. Initial forensic procedures began immediately. Investigators documented footprints in the sand, examined the surrounding terrain, and spoke to anyone who might have seen Toya the day before. One of the key observations was the lack of drag marks near the scene, which strongly suggested the crime had taken place close to where the body was discovered. The individual responsible had either been lying in wait or crossed paths with her by chance. An official report of a violent offense was filed, and the collection of physical evidence was launched. Samples of sand, shoe prints, and biological traces were gathered from a radius of roughly 160 feet. Based on how the scene appeared, authorities suspected the motive might have involved aggression with intent. However, this possibility was not immediately confirmed to the public. The news quickly spread throughout the community. Local media reported on the tragic loss of a young woman at a secluded beach, which stirred public concern. In the Cairns area, many women became hesitant to go out for walks alone. Authorities publicly vowed to do everything in their power to identify the person behind the crime and ensure justice was served. Police began pulling surveillance footage from highway cameras, shopping centers, and public areas to trace Toya's movements in the final hours of her life. Simultaneously, DNA samples were being collected for comparison with the materials found at the scene. Toya's body was transported to Brisbane for a detailed forensic examination. Investigators needed to determine the exact cause of death, the time it occurred, and whether there were any signs of targeted aggression. From that point on, the case was in the hands of detectives, forensic analysts, and medical examiners. Toya Jade Cordingley was born in 1994 and lived in Cairns, a city in northeastern Australia. She grew up in a caring home with her father, Troy Cordingley, and her mother, Vanessa. From a young age, Toya had shown a special sensitivity toward both people and animals. She attended local schools and later completed a pharmaceutical program working in a pharmacy. But no matter how busy she was, she always found time to care for animals. Toya volunteered at the Paws and Claws Animal Shelter, where she helped treat animals, walked dogs, and cleaned the facilities. Her colleagues remembered her dedication. She never missed a shift and often returned in the evenings to check on a sick puppy or feed the animals. Her love for animals extended far beyond just volunteering. She actively spoke out for their protection, promoted spaying and neutering, condemned cruelty, and encouraged adoption from shelters. At the time of her passing, Toya was in a relationship with Marco Hines, a young man she lived with. To those around them, they appeared to be a close couple. They spent weekends together, took trips out in nature, and often shared photos on social media. Their relationship seemed steady, though after the incident, some of Toya's close friends revealed that she had been expressing doubts and was considering taking a break. These conversations only came to light after the tragedy. Marco worked in retail and had connections in Cairns' nightlife scene, socializing with a broad circle of acquaintances. He was known for his impulsive personality, but this hadn't raised red flags until after Toya's disappearance. Investigators would later take a closer look at his actions on the day she went missing, though during the early stages of the case, very little about their relationship was made public. In the weeks leading up to the incident, Toya was active on her social media accounts. She often posted photos of animals, wrote about new arrivals at the shelter, and shared uplifting rescue stories. Her words, "You can't be kind halfway," and "Loving animals isn't a hobby, it's a way of life," gained wide attention after what happened. Despite her online presence, Toya rarely shared personal details about her private life. Her final post before she went missing was a photo of India with the caption, "Evening Walk." That image, peaceful and ordinary, would later become a symbol of the tragedy, capturing a moment of calm just before everything changed. As the case gained traction, the community remembered Toya as one of its brightest figures. Even those who never met her brought flowers to the shelter, left notes, and organized vigils in her memory. Her story stirred both sorrow and unease. If something like this could happen to someone like Toya, it could happen to anyone. Surveillance footage revealed that Toya had stopped to pick up groceries before heading to the beach, visiting Rusty's Market in Cairns. She was seen leaving with a bag and walking calmly toward her car. Nothing about her behavior, or anyone nearby, seemed out of the ordinary. Further footage from cameras along the Captain Cook Highway, the route leading to Wangeti Beach, provided only a partial picture. The area around the beach had no surveillance, making things more difficult for investigators. Authorities issued a public request for any dashcam footage recorded on October 21st between 10 a.m. and 11 p.m., especially footage capturing vehicles near the beach turnoffs or driving along the coastal stretch. Investigators carefully reviewed every piece of footage they received, comparing timestamps and vehicle types. Some videos helped track a few cars that had entered and exited the beach area on the day of the incident. Among them was a white SUV. The driver was later identified, interviewed, and ruled out as a suspect. However, several vehicles remained unidentified despite public appeals and the repeated release of video stills through media outlets. Alongside reviewing surveillance footage, authorities were actively seeking potential witnesses. It's possible that others had been on the beach that day, people fishing, walking, or relaxing nearby. Officers questioned individuals who had visited nearby parking areas, gas stations, and convenience stores. Unfortunately, no one reported seeing Toya at the beach that evening. This led investigators to consider the likelihood that the offense had occurred in a remote stretch of the coastline, one not often visited by passers-by. Detectives were also looking for clothing items believed to have belonged to Toya. Descriptions of the missing garments were shared with the public: athletic leggings, a t-shirt, flip-flops, and a rubber bracelet. Despite extensive searches, none of these items were found. Authorities urged local residents to check their properties, ditches, wooded areas, and roadsides for anything unusual. A few tips came in, but none led to the discovery of items definitively linked to the case. The forensic medical examination of the body revealed physical evidence suggesting that the offense may have involved aggressive behavior with intent. Law enforcement did not confirm this immediately in public statements, but confidential documents later leaked to the press indicated a possibility of targeted assault prior to the fatal outcome. Injuries to the neck, bruising patterns, and the positioning of the body all supported this line of investigation. DNA samples were collected from the body and the surrounding area. These were processed at a forensic lab in Brisbane. The results marked a crucial development in the effort to find the person responsible, though unfortunately no matches were found in the existing criminal databases. The lack of direct evidence or eyewitnesses created a growing sense of frustration and uncertainty. In the media and across social platforms, conversations intensified. People speculated, shared theories, and questioned the behavior of those closest to Toya. Meanwhile, investigators continued working behind the scenes, quietly hoping for a break in the case. Police were systematically vetting every potential lead. They tracked down routes, verified alibis, and investigated social connections. Still, the name of the primary suspect had not yet been revealed to the public. That name would emerge later, thanks to a DNA match, an unexpected disappearance, and the hasty trail left by someone who fled within 24 hours of the crime. Several weeks after the tragic loss of Toya Cordingley, the investigation turned its attention to a man named Rajwinder Singh. He was an Australian citizen of Indian descent, living in Innisfail, about a 90-minute drive from the crime scene, and working as a nurse. His name wasn't made public at the time, but within the investigation, he became the main person of interest. A number of coincidences drew attention to him, including his movements on the day of the incident and his behavior shortly afterward. On October 21, 2018, the day Toya went missing, cell tower data placed Rajwinder in the vicinity of Wangeti Beach. This aligned closely with the time Toya is believed to have arrived there and later lost her life. Investigators were further concerned by the fact that Singh stopped showing up to work without notice and abruptly left the home he shared with his wife and sons, disappearing from familiar routines. The following day, on October 22nd, Singh suddenly left Australia. He purchased a one-way ticket to Delhi and boarded the flight without informing his employer or acquaintances. He traveled light, and the booking was made hastily. At that time, authorities had no formal charges against him, so border agents had no legal reason to stop him. It would later be revealed that he left behind his wife's passport, personal belongings, and medical records at the house, without providing any clear explanation to his family for the sudden departure. Once DNA results from the scene were processed, Authorities found a strong likelihood of a match with samples previously collected from Singh. Further evidence included footprints matching his near the crime scene, giving investigators grounds to issue formal charges. However, by that time, Singh was already in India, and attempts to reach him through official channels proved unsuccessful. He wasn't responding to communications and, according to Australian officials, no longer lived at his registered address. Investigators then reviewed Singh's medical history, which showed that he had sought treatment for injuries to his hands shortly after Toya's disappearance. These included superficial cuts and bruises, which experts believed could have resulted from a physical altercation. Forensic findings confirmed that Toya had fought back. Her body showed signs of a struggle, including defensive marks on her arms and face, likely caused during the attack. Singh's behavior after fleeing the country raised even more concerns. He didn't attempt to settle down in one location or register with local authorities. Relatives in India reported that he rarely stayed at home and frequently moved from place to place. On occasion, he posed as a pilgrim to stay in temples and reportedly used aliases. Living without official documents allowed him to avoid attention from law enforcement. His wife and sons remained in Australia. Communication with his family was sporadic and vague. In one interview, his wife admitted she had no knowledge of the details surrounding the incident, but did say she had noticed a shift in his demeanor. He had become withdrawn and tense in the days leading up to his disappearance. There were also unconfirmed reports of a family dispute shortly before the crime, though no formal evidence of this was included in public records. By the time Rajwinder Singh's name was officially made public, Australian authorities had gathered a substantial body of evidence. Investigators had obtained a warrant for his arrest and submitted an official request to Interpol. Singh was placed on an international wanted list. Australia formally petitioned the Indian government for extradition, but Indian officials responded that they required a completed pre-trial investigation and a comprehensive set of supporting materials before they could proceed. Thus began an extended phase of Singh's evasion. Indian law enforcement periodically received alerts regarding his whereabouts, but efforts to detain him were unsuccessful. Back in Australia, the case remained a major topic of public concern. Each new mention of the suspect's name sparked renewed calls from the public demanding the government speed up the extradition process. Meanwhile, the investigation into Toya Cordingley's case moved in two key directions: gathering and analyzing evidence within Australia and coordinating efforts with authorities in India. Facing a lack of progress, Australian officials stepped up the pressure. The Queensland government allocated additional funding to accelerate investigative efforts. Then, in November 2021, the state's police chief made a rare announcement. A reward of $1 million Australian dollars would be offered for information leading to the capture of the suspect. He emphasized that resolving Toya's case remained a top priority. The reward announcement generated attention in Indian media. As the story gained traction, new tips began to emerge regarding Singh's possible location. Some reports claimed he had been spotted in religious communities in Punjab, while others suggested he was hiding with extended family under a false identity. Australian authorities shared this intelligence with their Indian counterparts, prompting a series of targeted searches. In November 2022, 4 years after the crime, Singh was finally apprehended in Delhi. He was found in the Yanakpuri area and was moving about the city alone, carrying no identification. When taken into custody, he did not resist. At first, he denied his identity, but after verification procedures, he admitted that he was indeed Rajwinder Singh, the man who had fled Australia back in October 2018. His arrest was officially confirmed. India's Ministry of Home Affairs announced that the extradition process was underway. Singh was placed in custody in Delhi and provided with legal representation. During his initial court appearance, he stated that he did not wish to be extradited to Australia, citing distrust in the judicial system and fears of bias. This declaration triggered a lengthy legal process that would stretch on for months. In response, Australia ramped up its diplomatic efforts. Legal experts specializing in international law were brought into the case. Authorities formally documented all grounds for extradition, including expert reports and case materials to support their request. For the first time since the tragic loss of Toya Cordingley, there was a real possibility that the suspect would finally face trial. But a long road still lay ahead, one filled with legal procedures, appeals, and questions surrounding citizenship status. During one of the interrogations, Rajwinder Singh unexpectedly admitted to being involved in the crime. The statement was recorded as part of the official case file. However, just days later, he recanted, claiming that his confession had been made under pressure and wasn't true. He insisted he had no connection to Toya Cordingley's death. In a written statement, Singh argued that the case was not as straightforward as the investigators presented. He introduced a bizarre theory involving two offenders and two victims, implying that what happened at Wangeti Beach might have been a different kind of encounter, and that he had merely witnessed someone else's actions. This version was never backed by evidence, but it caught the attention of legal representatives and added a new layer to the court proceedings. The Indian court agreed to hear his claim, delaying the case further. The legal process was repeatedly stalled. Hearings were rescheduled, and the defense filed multiple objections, citing concerns over Singh's rights. Still, in 2023, an Indian court approved the extradition request, ruling that the documents submitted by Australian authorities met international standards and that the suspect could be returned to face trial. Final approval came from India's Minister of Home Affairs. With that, preparations began for Singh's transfer under secure conditions. In November 2023, Rajwinder Singh was officially handed over to Australian law enforcement and transported to Queensland. He was met by state police officials and immediately taken into custody at a secure detention facility. The flight and transfer were carried out under strict confidentiality to prevent any leaks or interference. Shortly after arrival, formal charges were filed against him. The primary charge was the intentional killing of Toya Cordingley on October 21, 2018. The court ruled that Singh would remain in custody without bail. Prosecutors stressed that he had previously left the country and evaded justice for years, making him a clear flight risk. They also noted the seriousness of the accusation, a violent offense resulting in loss of life, committed with notable cruelty. With Singh back on Australian soil, preparations for trial officially began. Authorities assured the public that the case would be handled transparently, in accordance with the country's legal standards. Meanwhile, new details began to emerge from the case files, information previously kept private. One such revelation involved Toya's personal life. It was discovered she had been in contact with another man named Tyson, a foot care specialist. This detail had not been part of the early investigation and was overlooked until months after the incident, when investigators analyzed messages and phone data. Only then did it become clear that Toya may have been involved in a romantic relationship outside of her official partnership. Toya and Tyson had first started communicating just a few weeks before the tragic incident. At first, it was casual, occasional messages exchanged online. But soon, their conversations grew more personal and emotionally open. As investigators reviewed chat histories and archived social media content, they uncovered a number of direct and vulnerable messages from Toya. She shared her emotional struggles, doubts about her relationship with Marco Hines, and her desire for change. In one message, she stated she didn't feel genuinely happy anymore and mentioned outbursts of aggression from her partner. A message dated mid-October included the phrase, "He lost it again. I don't feel safe. Maybe it's time to end it." In another, more neutral message, she expressed a wish to go away by herself and get a break from the pressure. While none of the messages directly accused Marco of wrongdoing, they clearly reflected emotional strain, and Toya's growing distance from him. She also told Tyson that she was hiding their conversations so as not to trigger another outburst. Initially, investigators had no access to this information. Toya's phone had missing chat records, and her messaging app didn't automatically back up deleted content. It was only through advanced digital forensics that part of the erased data was recovered. This breakthrough became a key moment in the investigation, highlighting that Toya had been keeping parts of her life private from Marco, and that her behavior may have been interpreted by him as distant or suspicious. As the new evidence came to light, investigators once again turned their attention to Marco Hines. Previously, he had only been considered a witness, but now, with the added context of hidden messages and signs of tension in the relationship, there was a need to recheck his alibi and movements on the day Toya disappeared. According to the timeline, Marco was in town at the time of Toya's disappearance. His location was partially verified through work records and surveillance footage. However, with the discovery of the new messages, police began analyzing those records more closely. A particular window of time between 2 p.m. and 9 p.m. became a point of interest. That's when Toya was believed to be at the beach. During those hours, Marco's phone activity dropped significantly. He stopped responding to messages and later sent a brief text that seemed out of character. Investigators also noted a report that his car had been seen near an exit leading to the Captain Cook Highway that same evening, despite his previous statement that he had stayed within Central Cairns. These inconsistencies prompted another round of questioning. Police brought Marco in to clarify certain details. He confirmed being in the city, but struggled to explain some of the gaps in his movements. He denied any involvement in the crime and claimed to have had no knowledge of Toya's relationship with another man. While there was not enough evidence to formally accuse him, his responses raised red flags and warranted further investigation. Investigators began cross-referencing movement data for everyone mentioned in Toya's communications. Phone records were requested, travel patterns analyzed, surveillance footage reviewed, and witness statements gathered. Tyson's location was verified. He had been in another city at the time with no physical way to be near the scene. He was officially ruled out as a potential suspect. With this new context, investigators concluded that Toya had been experiencing significant internal conflict in the weeks leading up to the crime. These findings were added to the extensive investigative file. Although the main suspect was already in custody, investigators did not rule out the possibility that others might have been involved. Questions surrounding motives, emotional dynamics, and hidden details remained unresolved. 6 years after Toya Cordingley's tragic death, the case finally reached the courtroom. The trial began on July 22, 2024, at the Cairns District Court and immediately drew widespread public attention. Despite a substantial body of evidence, no verdict has been issued yet. The hearings are still ongoing. By the start of the trial, the prosecution argued that Singh acted alone, carried out the offense with exceptional cruelty, and fled the country in an attempt to avoid justice. They proposed that the motive may have involved inappropriate intent that escalated into aggression. However, direct evidence of such a motive remains limited, and that part of the case is still considered unresolved. During proceedings, the defense maintained that the case was built on circumstantial evidence. Singh's attorneys emphasized that he denies any wrongdoing and claimed that his prior confession, made in India, was coerced and given without proper legal guidance. They also pointed to the lack of eyewitnesses and questioned the interpretation of the DNA evidence, arguing that its presence did not conclusively prove his involvement in the crime. Adding further complexity was a cryptic statement Singh reportedly made during his extradition process. He later declined to elaborate, and his legal team attempted to have it excluded from the case, arguing it had no legal significance. Nonetheless, the court ruled that it could be discussed during testimony. The witness list includes police officers, forensic experts, medical professionals, Toya's former co-workers, and individuals who had interacted with Singh while he was in India. Yet, key questions remain unanswered. Could someone else have played a role? How significant were the tensions between Toya and her then-partner Marco? Why hasn't a single clear witness to the crime come forward? These topics continue to spark public debate, though they are not formally part of the current charges. The hearings are still underway, and the conclusion has yet to come. The judge is reviewing all presented material, questioning continues, and forensic experts are still submitting findings. Toya's parents have been present at the proceedings, but have chosen not to make public statements. Their quiet presence in the courtroom highlights the deeply personal toll of the trial. When the court eventually delivers its verdict, it will mark the end of a long and painful journey. For now, though, the case remains open. No confession, no exoneration, only questions, arguments, and the hope that the truth will finally emerge through the justice system. Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support means a lot to me, and you can help my channel grow by hitting that like button, dropping a comment, and sharing this video. Your engagement really makes a difference. See you soon.